Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. HR wanted to fire my father and leave him without a pension, but my father was smarter, so he kept his job. The second story. Company turned out to pay us $500 for telephone lines. We destroyed them, and they could not connect new lines. The third story. After my check, the manager repaired the whole workshop and got an earful from his bosses about production delays and another from health and safety. Today's first story is, HR tried to get rid of my dad right before he was able to get his pension. My father worked for a Forbes 500 company since the 70s, moved up the ranks as a software engineer and manager, has patents for the company that saved it millions of dollars. He's almost to pension age, and suddenly HR starts making his life miserable. He noticed this trend was happening to some of his coworkers when they were getting close to age 60 as well. HR lady calls him into the office and says that he was not punching in and out at the correct time. My father, an engineer, is very detail-oriented. He knew that these were false accusations and asked HR to prove it. They came back a week later and couldn't prove it, and he said, "Of course you can't. I've been driving the corporate carpool bus from a major city 40 miles away from the company for the last 15 years. I always have 16 witnesses on my clock in time, and I haven't been late in 15 years. HR lady came back a week later and said that they were going to fire him for letting people into the building without badging. He asked to see when and where he was letting someone into the building without badging. They showed that he held the door for his best friend, who had also been working there since the 70s, who had his foot cut off after having type 2 diabetes. He was in a wheelchair. Prior to this, my dad took the chief of security out for lunch and told him about how this company wanted him to leave before he got his pension, so he got some footage of his own. My dad said, "That's very interesting. You're gonna fire me for holding the door for my best friend of 35 years after his foot was amputated and he was in a wheelchair? Fine, then I hope you fire the CEO and yourself as well." He then proceeded to show footage of the HR lady holding the door for his friend and the CEO holding the door for his friend. My father ended up staying there until he got his pension. Edit. I don't know his finances and he probably wouldn't have lost the whole pension, but there was a definite financial difference from being fired prior to reaching age 60 and making it to age 60. Edit 2. Also, some of you were wondering why a software engineer would have to clock in and out. Well, he didn't. I meant to use the word badge in and out of the building. They went that far to talk with security to see his badge timestamps. There are more things that led to this getting bad, and I didn't want to write pages and pages, but it definitely escalated to this point. Lastly, for those of you that have been saying that my dad must have worked there as a child, this whole thing happened roughly 9 years ago. My father is 68 right now. If you want to know what company it was, this sentence is the most general hint I can give you, but it may drive people from that company to be mad at me. Final update. Dad quit that job a while ago and made his own company in his retirement. He has used his own money to patent a new invention that desalinates seawater and provides clean solar energy. He has patents for this in America, India, and China, and is looking for some capital to provide clean water and power to third world countries. I know a lot of people who at the age of 55 or older have been laid off because of performance problems. Everything was fine, but suddenly the company finds reasons to fire them for no good reason. Now I work for a company that seems to value almost retirees, but the rest of the company doesn't work. It sucks because finding a new job at age 55 plus isn't easy. I'm wondering what happened if your father had let them fire him, and then he could have hired a lawyer and shown the lawyer how the HR lady and the CEO did what they fired him for. Would he have fired them too? It would be funny if the judge ruled, "Look, HR lady and CEO, you fired this guy for holding the door open for his friend, who had his leg amputated. So did you both. So I figure if this guy gets fired for that, so do you. Get fired." The next story is, take all the phone equipment out. You sure? Back in the dark ages, before Netflix, telephones at businesses used to be fixed lines with wires connecting the phone jack to a switching room. This was the mid-1990s. I worked for the concession company at one of those huge events venues that hosted concerts, hockey games, and trade shows. I was the third in command of sorts, in charge of being sure of all the concession stands were properly stocked and ready to go as each event began. I would fix stuff, set up the beer stands, and just generally be sure everything was ready to go. Overall, it was a sweet gig with backstage access to every concert, as our office was next to the performer's dressing room. But all good things must come to an end, and the corporate office decided to not submit a bid to renew our 10-year contract. There was a fixed end date, and to plan the transition there were a couple meetings with the new company that would be taking over. Okay. One major point of discussion is what would be left behind that was owned by the venue, and what our company would be taking. Most things that were owned by our company that would be a pain to take were offered to the new company at a low price, a real steal. Beer coolers, central CO2 tank, grills, popcorn machines, etc., and the new company agreed to buy it all until we got to one item, the phone system. The building was huge with massive concrete walls and floors, so cell phone didn't work so great. So our company had installed landline telephones, all connected through the building's central telephone switching room. As our company paid for the phone system, and it wouldn't be worth it to take the phones with us, we offered it to the new company for $500. They said no. A bit later at lunch, I heard one of the representatives for the new company laughing about the offer of the phone system. He muttered something to the effect that they could just hook their phones up to the wires and be ready to go for much cheaper. At the end of the meeting, we reviewed what was agreed. And in going over the phone equipment, the other company's representative said, "No, just take it all out." Okay. Now, my boss, L, was pretty cool and a bit impish. Her boss, D, the head guy at our site, was a very straight-laced conservative guy. He didn't seem to have that slightly devilish streak in him. But when I came to the office the next day, D and L told me to do exactly what the other company asked for the phone system. Take it all out. I spent that a day going to each concession stand, taking the phone off the wall, unscrewing the plate for the phone jack and removing that, and then pulling the phone lines as far as I could, and reaching down into the wall to cut the wires. Each stand was left with a hole in the awl, and phone lines that were cut about an inch below the edge of the hole. A fond farewell. The end of the contract was coming, and at the very last day of our contract, I had the sad duty to deal with the leftover alcohol. Corporate did not have any other locations in our state with a liquor license, so we could not transfer stock to other locations across state lines. D gave the order to pour the remaining liquor down the sink, and then he promptly left for lunch. With a wink from L, we poured a few partial bottles of vermouth and other mixers down the drain to give the office that smell of booze. And then we loaded the trunk of L's car, with as many mixed cases as would fit, and put the rest in our company van. L knew I didn't have a car, but then she suggested that I drive the van to get it washed. And what do you know? When I got back, the van was sparkling clean and empty of any boxes of booze. The aftermath. That winter, I attended a hockey game at the arena, and noticed the hole still open in the wall of the concession stand. I guess they didn't just hook up their equipment to the wires after all. I guess they lost a lot of money to install new lines, but they didn't manage to do it. Maybe if they knew how much trouble it would bring, they wouldn't refuse and give you $500. But what's done is done. I think they realized their mistake after they started installing the new phone lines. I have a story about the phones. I worked for an IT company. Our company decided to move to another office building. I do not know why. The company outsourced its IT, big servers, to a contractor. 2 large office buildings. Our company left all their old phone equipment, but for some reason, I don't understand why they did it. Since our phone equipment was in good condition and worked flawlessly, the contractor took everything out and sold it for scrap. He installed new multifunction electronic phones. After 3 months, the phone company asked for all the phones and switches back because all their phones were leased from the phone company. They ended up paying a huge amount of money to reimburse the phone company for the obsolete equipment that had been sold by the contractor for scrap. And one more question, you got yourself some free drinks, didn't you? Pouring that much booze is not fair. Next time, contact me. I'll be there real quick, haha. The last story is how I got a dangerous workshop repaired and peeved off a manager. So, I know what people are gonna say. If it was dangerous, why not just report it to health and safety? And my answer is that I'm thick as mints. Plus, I've seen how they butchered the workshop of another department, putting insane safety measures in place that do little to actually protect people, and mostly just get in the way. The safety person is only technically qualified, meaning they're an office worker that went on a course about it once. Go figure. So the situation was, I was working in a machining workshop, mill, lathe, surface grinder, etc. It's old and worn out. Everything needs maintenance, but either management don't give us the time, it needs new parts that management won't buy, or it needs a proper service from a professional that management won't get in. Then someone in health and safety asks about safety checks, which the manager in charge sheepishly mentions there are none. Officially, at least, we have the sense to do them anyway. And so weekly safety checks are put in place. More paperwork, boo, but I don't mind. Knowing this manager, he expects them done like all other safety checks in the factory, unless it's going to kill someone. Sign to say it's okay anyway, and let him know so it can be fixed later. That way the machines don't get stopped constantly. But I realize the potential. Want me to do the checks? Sure, I'll do the checks perfectly. Spindle brake on the lathe is worn out? Fail. Locked off? Nobody can use it till it's fixed. No emergency stop on the big drill? Fail. Locked off, nobody can use it. Plastic housing for the wiring on the mill is broken? Fail. Locked off, nobody can use it, etc., etc. Safe to say he wasn't happy, but what can he do? It's all recorded on paper, and machines in the factory are stopping because they need parts making. Then came the big one. For a while we've noticed machines getting damaged overnight. Night shift, shakes fist, but we weren't sure how. All the machines are on key locks and we have the only keys. I come back after break one day and find a machine operator turning on a bench grinder to sharpen a knife. Cue some colorful words about what he thinks he's doing, why it's wrong, what I'll do to him if he does it again, and I ask how he turned it on. Turns out someone from night shift told him the lock is old and worn out, and basically any similar key will work just fine, no matter what the bidding. So I go round to check, and sure enough my locker key, the kind everyone in the factory has, turns on every machine. Some even worked with a screwdriver, or just using the back end of another key because there was no lock left inside. Fail, 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 fail. Everything fails. Whole workshop stopped. If this was a cartoon, the manager's ears would be leaking steam by now. He insists that this doesn't count as a fail because reasons. Then that those locks with keys that control power aren't keyed interlocks, and so I don't need to check them, before finally just insisting it's okay, and I should pass it because he says so. Sure, I said, just put it in writing that it's you saying it's okay, not me. Sure, back down quick then. A day or so later, new locks turned up and were fitted, and the problem of overnight broken equipment went away. In the end, the manager got an earful from his bosses about production delays, and another from health and safety, when they found out these issues had been reported for a long time, without anything done about them. In all, though, he got away pretty clean besides the bruised ego. And that's how the workshop went from old, crappy, and dangerous, to just old and slightly less crappy. Edit. I go with stupidity before malice. They're machine operators, not technical guys, and his reaction to being told how much he effed up made it clear he had no idea how serious it was. The guy comes straight to me now whenever he needs his trimming knife sharpening. He didn't get to use it, and was under the impression that it was okay to use the machines, that the keys were only for turning them on, not to stop the wrong people using them. If he had known it was wrong, then for sure I wouldn't have been so easy on him. Can you sue your boss? Can you go to the Occupational Safety and Health Inspectorate? My job has very strict rules. Inspections are done every month, and fortunately all the employees are healthy and alive. Management insists that safety issues be addressed regardless of downtime, mostly because injuries cost a lot of money, especially if they were caused by something they should have handled before. But I have a friend who works in a small shop, where safety measures are safety guidelines. Their boss is a pretty cheapskate, so they work on the machines until they can't work. Then they rework them to get some more work done. Once the machine becomes too crappy to do meaningful work or too dangerous, they just spoil it to the point where all that's left of it is a pile of scrap. Now the boss can't tell them to fix it, so he buys a new machine. I've learned in my few years in manufacturing that management only cares about your safety until it becomes inconvenient or expensive. Then they have to be made to care. Because if you remain silent and do nothing, it can end very badly. You can't allow employees to work under these conditions. Subscribe, hit the like button, and have a good day.